Alright. Hi everyone, my name is Marina Johnson, and this is my critical introduction for my English 1301 portfolio. Over the past few weeks, we've been exploring what it means to grow as a reader, writer, and thinker through our course readings and activities. In this reflection, I'll discuss how my work, especially reading journals 1 and 4, show my progress with the student learning outcomes that we discussed the first week of class, and my growth in revision and feedback, which is the writing practice that I chose to talk about. I'll also reflect on my strengths and weaknesses and some questions I still have about my learning process. When I started the semester, I thought that reading and writing in college would mostly be like understanding the content and turning in very like perfect edited essays. But I've worked through the readings and journals and realized that writing and reading are both more longer processes and that they require different elements such as curiosity, reflection, and like this willingness to challenge your own thinking. The two assignments I'll be sharing are reading journals 1 and 4 and showing how I changed my approach over time. Reading journal 1 focused on Gita Dasbender's essay Critical Thinking in College Writing from Personal to the Academic, while reading journal 4 was about L. Winnie Irvin's essay Changing Your Mind About Revision. The main thing I noticed was that there was a lot of growth between my two journals, given that they were, I think, about 4 weeks apart. In reading journal 1, I was still focused on engaging critically with the text, and Dossbender's essay was really challenging for me to read. She used a lot of complex academic language, and I had to read it twice before I could really grasp the main ideas. My process was mostly about paraphrasing difficult passages and highlighting key terms so that I was understanding them as I read and looking back. Looking back, this shows early evidence of critical thinking because I was already asking questions and trying to interpret meaning rather than just summarizing what I've been reading. By the time I wrote Reading Journal 4, I noticed a big improvement. Irvin's essay about revision helped me shift my understanding so that instead of focusing on content, I was focusing more on connecting ideas to my own writing habits. I wasn't just annotating for clarity anymore. I was really engaging in a conversation. So I was writing down questions, margin notes, obviously still keeping clarity notes, so paraphrasing, adding key terms, and I was able to use this to really summarize everything that I had read. So if I was to take my annotations from Reading Journal 4 and the text from Reading Journal 4 without looking at the actual article, I would say that my annotations pretty much mirror the article in a way that you wouldn't have to read the article to understand what my annotations are about, if that makes sense. I feel like it's a little difficult to explain, but I feel like that just demonstrates a growth in like my critical thinking skills and thinking about how I write, how I read, and how I annotate. In terms of connecting all of that to the SLOs that we talked about at the beginning of the semester, I think critical thinking is where I've grown the most. And both reading journals show how I've analyzed, questioned what I've read, and especially like having these improvements in my annotations. In Journal 4, I especially reflected on how the concept of growth mindset challenged my own mindset of perfectionism, because I tend to be a perfectionist with all my assignments and I want to get everything perfect, and it frustrates me when things don't go as planned, if that makes sense. And this kind of reflection that he talks about, evaluating your own assumptions, is really what critical thinking looks like in academic writing. My writing overall became clearer and more organized, more effective because of this. However, my oral communication is something I still really struggle with. I've realized that I'm confident in writing and like being confident as I write things down on sheets of paper or typing them out into an assignment. Speaking out loud is hard for me because see, I'm struggling with it right now. on paper, you can just write it out, go back, change mistakes, and then like continue to move forward, and like you can correct your grammar. The computer kind of like corrects your grammar mistakes. Whereas when you're speaking and like recording yourself for performance like this, you kind of have one shot to get it all right, or you have to restart. So as a perfectionist, I feel like that's a little hard for me, and working on this video reflection especially is a little difficult for me to like verbally express my thoughts and ideas, because I have a script obviously, but at the same time you don't want to read exactly from the script and from your assignments to convey a point. So I think that oral communication is really just a lot of confidence and preparation and a lot of reflection before you even begin talking or speaking to an audience or recording. Um, so my chosen writing practice, revision and feedback, has really changed a lot throughout these first 8 weeks of the semester. Um, Early in the semester, I noticed that my revision was just fixing like small grammar mistakes and changing like spelling, making sure everything just flows clearly. But as the semester went on and reading Irvin's essay, I really learned that revision is about re-seeing my ideas in his 3-step like draft approach, the first, second, and final, like being able to not just have like original draft, make some edits to like the spelling, the grammar, and then final draft. Now it's like, okay, this is my first draft. I'm just getting everything on the paper. Second draft, I'm polishing things up, really focusing on making sure that I'm conveying the ideas I want to convey and having the specific points. And then the third draft is where I polish everything up, have it perfectly clean, and like my spelling, everything is corrected. So I think that I'm just improving a lot in how I look at my assignments um, after they're completed. So tying this all together, I think that reading and writing constantly work together. And if you read more actively, you learn how to structure, revise your writing a lot better. And then when your writing is revised, it's more clear. So you're being more clear, but you're getting your point across more effectively and you'll get a better grade. Um, and basically, all these changes don't have to happen overnight. You have to consistently work at them to improve. So the two unanswered questions that I've come up with about my process are, how can I improve my oral communication skills so that my spoken ideas are as confident as my writing ones, especially without reading from a script, because it's very obvious when you're reading from a script. Like, I'm reading from a script right now, however, it's not every little thing I'm trying to say all typed out onto one document. And then my second question is, how can I balance being critical of my own writing without being too critical of my writing to the point where I'm becoming a perfectionist and stressing myself out more than I need to. So, to conclude, this portfolio represents more of my journey towards confidence and growth as a writer, a reader, and a thinker. And I've learned to value revision and understand its importance, reflect upon my own work, and have like a self-assessment of key parts of the learning process. And yeah, thank you.